Everyone in Xinjing knows that the young marquis detests me. His marquis. To divorce me. He frequented brothels day after day. Yet I cared not, tending to him with utmost devotion, until he scarred his face for his white moonlight. I wept uncontrollably. He thought I grieved for him. Little did he know. My tears flowed because no one in this world could ever replace my young general. That day, I tore up the marriage contract, my eyes devoid of tenderness. Shen Huiding, let us part ways. Madam, the marquis has drunk himself senseless at Dream Return Pavilion again and refuses to return. My hand paused mid-page. Have a carriage prepared, I shall fetch him myself. Having visited Dream Return Pavilion countless times, I knew its layout by heart. Ignoring the curious stares around me, I strode straight to Shen Huiding's usual private room. Before I entered, a woman's coquettish voice drifted out, "My lord, you've drunk so much again. When the lady arrives, she'll blame me for not stopping you." Shen Huiding snorted coldly, his tone dripping with scorn. "What lady? She's nothing but my dog. A dog summoned at my command, dismissed at my whim." The guard's expressions shifted, fearing I might be angered. But I acted as if I hadn't heard a thing, pushing open the door and stepping inside. "Your lordship, it's time to return to the manor." Shen Huiding's dazed gaze fixed on my face before suddenly breaking into a cold laugh. "You heard that?" He was referring to the conversation from earlier. I nodded, my expression unruffled. "I heard." Shen Huiding's brow furrowed, seemingly displeased by my calm reaction. He staggered closer, leaning in until his eyes met mine, a dark gleam in them. "Am I right? Are you my dog?" The stench of alcohol hit me. I instinctively wrinkled my nose. I knew Shen Huiding was deliberately trying to provoke me. I clenched my fists, lifting my gaze to meet his, speaking each word deliberately. "Your Excellency, it's time to return to the mansion." We locked eyes, neither yielding. Shen Huiding was the first to falter, because he passed out drunk. Later that night, I wiped his face with a damp towel. Suddenly, he stirred and grabbed my hand. His voice trembled slightly. "You Rue, don't get married. Wait for me, okay?" I didn't respond. He studied me closely, murmured something, then drifted back to sleep. He said, "You're not Yu Rue." Of course I wasn't Guyu Rue. Guyu Rue was Shen Huiding's beloved white moon. They were childhood sweethearts, destined to grow old together. Yet when Gu's father spoke out of turn in court, the emperor punished him by betrothing Guyu Rue to the unloved third prince. The emperor then commanded Shen Huiding to marry me. That day, Shen Huiding knelt before the palace gates, begging the emperor to revoke the decree. Instead, he was beaten with 20 heavy strokes and sent back to his residence. His love for Guyu Rue ran deep. So deep that he despised me intensely, the wife who had taken Guyu Rue's place. Barely 3 days after our wedding, he began frequenting brothels, spending his days with courtesans. I became the biggest laughingstock in Xinjiang. People even placed private bets, wagering I'd be divorced within a year. Yet here we are, 3 years later. My devotion to Shen Huiding grows daily, my care for him meticulous. When he returned home from the brothel, drunk and staggering, I would disregard my status and go to the brothel to fetch him back. Time and time again, those who had initially sneered at my inability to keep my husband's heart now had no harsh words left to say. They only sighed at my pitiful state. But I was not pitiful. I brought him home simply because I loved watching Shen Huiding's drunken demeanor. In those moments, he was unusually docile, slumped asleep against the carriage. Dim light fell across his face, accentuating his sharp features, making him look even more like my little general. The next morning, the first snow of the season fell. The empress hosted a plum blossom banquet in the inner palace. inviting all the ministers of Xinjing to admire the flowers and drink wine. During breakfast, I asked softly, "My lord, will you accompany me?" Shen Huiting glanced at me and nodded. I was somewhat surprised. After all, he never joined me at banquets. I had servants prepare the carriage and personally laid out his ceremonial robes. After much bustling about, when it was time to depart, Shen Huiting was nowhere to be found. Maid Qingzhu fumed indignantly, "The marquis is outrageous. He promised the lady and then didn't show." I lowered my eyelashes, thinking, this is likely just another of Shen Huiting's new ways to toy with me. Once, when my mother was gravely ill, he took me to Huayin Temple, deceiving me that it was a place for prayers and that kneeling all night would prove my sincerity. So I knelt all night. Only later did I learn it was merely an abandoned temple rumored to be haunted. He once cut the pouch I embroidered for my father and brothers, tore apart my treasured calligraphy and paintings. Time and again, he tried to provoke me, to force me to divorce him. But I endured it all, because when I looked at his face, I was powerless, willingly deceived time and again. At the peach blossom banquet, most couples sat together, hand in hand. Only I remained utterly alone. Yet everyone understood my plight. Their gazes toward me carried a hint of pity. Even the Empress, having heard I'd visited the brothel again yesterday, pulled me aside. Her tone held a sigh as she said, "Sui Chao, you mustn't indulge Huiting any longer." I flushed with a touch of maidenly bashfulness. I don't want his lordship to be unhappy because of me. If it makes him happy, I'll do anything. The Empress patted my hand and said no more. After all, she had arranged Gu Huiting's marriage to me precisely because I was renowned in Xinjing for my gentle nature, too soft to restrain him. Her heart ached for Gu Huiting, who had lost his mother young, and she was naturally willing to indulge him. How humiliating it was for me. The marquis's wife meant nothing to her. Yet no matter how humiliating it was, I could not harbor resentment. Her words of concern were merely a test. I understood this better than anyone, and I was willing to play along, feigning a devoted heart. Only then could I keep my position as marquis's wife. Only then could I see that face day after day. After all, one must give to receive. During the banquet, snow suddenly began falling outside the windows. The ladies of Xinjing rarely saw snow and couldn't resist going out to join the commotion. Only I remained unmoved. One lady asked curiously, "Lady Gu grew up in the northwest. I hear it snows heavily there every winter day. Does Lady Gu not like snow?" I took a light sip of peach wine. "I do not. The one I loved died on a snowy night. Since then, I have loved no more." On the way back to the mansion, I did not take the carriage. I walked slowly along the path home. Qingzhu held the umbrella while complaining, "Miss, you're walking in the snow again, craving the chill. Now that General Hua isn't here to keep you in line." Mid-sentence, she abruptly swallowed the rest of her words and glanced at me cautiously. It had been so long since I'd heard that name. I faltered, then resumed my pace as if nothing had happened, though my steps grew faster and faster, until I could walk no further, stopping to catch my breath in short gasps. Qingzhu caught up, brushed the snow from my shoulders, and gently urged, "Miss, it's been years since General Hua Xiao passed. You should let it go." Before she finished, a soft, delicate sob drifted from the alley beside us. The next moment, a man's voice rang out, "You Ru, stop crying." It was Shen Huiting. "You are the only one I ever loved. Meng Sui means nothing to me, yet she is your wife. So what? You are the only one in my heart. Even with her title, I never shared a bed with her. The whole capital knows how much I despise her. She's a twice-married woman. How could she ever hold half the dignity of a marquis's wife? Twice-married woman. Those 3 words turned Qingzhu's face ashen, her eyes widening in shock. She was likely stunned that Shen Huiting knew about this. After all, my past marriage had been meticulously concealed by my father, no one in Xinjing knew. But before she could process it, the 3rd prince burst into the alleyway with his men, raging, "You adulterous scum! How dare you sneak around behind this prince's back? You shameless goo, you are you! Pregnant and still can't keep your hands to yourself. Stealing men! And this bastard isn't his either. Is it?" Before the words faded, Shen Huiting's fist slammed into her face. A series of thuds followed, punctuated by the woman's shrieks. I watched silently, making no move to intervene. The Shen residence was a house of martial generals. How could the 3rd prince and a few servants possibly harm him? But I had miscalculated. When it was all over, I slowly approached the alley. Gu Yueru had already been taken away, leaving only Shen Huiting leaning against the wall. Seeing me, he showed no surprise. In the shadows, his eyes gleamed with unusual intensity. "You heard it again?" I nodded. "I heard it. She and I have no." He stepped out of the shadows, revealing his full form. His face held a hint of awkwardness as he began to explain. But my gaze was drawn to the scar on his left cheek. Not long, but extremely deep. It was still bleeding steadily. My heart lurched violently. I pressed a handkerchief against the wound. My eyes panicked. "Call the imperial physician. Quickly!" He froze, frowning. "It's just a minor scratch." But I insisted, pulling him back to the mansion. Only when the physician arrived to treat him and told me the scar was irreparable, likely to remain for life. I sat before him, frozen, staring at him motionless for a long while. Shen Huiting's brow furrowed deeply, wanting to leave, but I seized his wrist. "It hurts so much. Shen Huiting, why does it hurt so much?" Burying my face in his chest, I burst into tears without warning. Uncontrollable sobs shook me, grief overwhelming me, as if I'd lost the most precious thing in my life. Shen Huiting froze, instinctively trying to comfort me. "Don't cry. I really don't hurt." He thought I was grieving for him, but I wasn't. I wept because there would never be another like my little general in this lifetime. Never again. After that day, my relationship with Shen Huiting seemed to ease somewhat. I hadn't changed. Shen Huiting, however, stopped frequenting brothels and drinking himself into a stupor every day. He picked up his spear again, the weapon he excelled at, and began sparring with soldiers on the training grounds. The marquis said he didn't want to get hurt anymore, afraid his wife would cry again. His guard whispered to me that perhaps he was doing it to make me happier. But my reaction was flat, without a trace of joy. Once, I went to watch Shen Huiting during a sparring session. Under the sunlight, he swung his spear. His jet-black hair danced, his skin pale and smooth. The faint scar on his face didn't diminish his handsomeness, it only added to his masculine charm. But from start to finish, he bore not a single trace of my little general. I waited until his sparring ended and called out to him, "Your lordship, shall we take a walk?" He didn't refuse. We walked side by side through the marquis' estate, the first time in 3 years of marriage. Tilting my head slightly, I could see his crimson ears and the scar on his face. "Actually, you're right. I am a woman who has remarried." Shen Huiting froze. I asked, "Do you know who I married?" His brow furrowed slightly. "I don't want to know." But disregarding his refusal, I continued, "His name was Hua Qingxiao. We grew up together in the Northwest. In summer, he'd take me horseback riding. At dusk, he'd play the flute for me in the courtyard. When I turned 16, I was to marry him. The dowry was already prepared. But the day before, chaos erupted at the frontier. He had to go. And then, he never returned. In that war, The emperor reclaimed the frontier, and my father and brothers earned military honors. Only I lost my husband. The pain is unspeakable and beyond words. Even my father and brothers kept the matter of my betrothal tightly sealed, forbidding me to utter a single word about it. They forced me to forget Hua Qingxiao. But I cannot forget. I blinked my stinging eyes and realized snow had begun to fall unnoticed. Just like the day Hua Qingxiao left. That day, clad in silver-white armor, he leaned over the wall looking down at me, his handsome face flushed with a hint of blush. Zhao Zhao, wait for me to return victorious, and I will marry you. This time I've wronged you, but you must wait for my return. Then I'll take you as my wife, and we'll grow old together, never parting for a lifetime. His gaze burned so intensely it melted my heart, searing his name into my very blood, letter by letter. To this day, I cannot forget. Snowflakes landed on my cheeks, their chill snapping me back to reality. I stared straight at Shen Huiting, my voice soft. Shen Huiting, you actually look very much like him. That's why, no matter how much you anger me, I can never truly be angry with you. But I was always wrong. You are you, and he is he. You are not the same person. His body jerked violently, as if my words had struck a nerve. Don't say it. Don't say it. I smiled, my sigh tinged with resignation. I treated you as a substitute. But you treated me poorly too. We're even now. Shen Huiting. Let's divorce. Shen Huiting gave me no reply. He only stared at me for a long time, then turned and walked away. I didn't understand. Dissolving our marriage should have been his lifelong pursuit. Why? When I initiated it, did he not agree immediately? It was likely because I suddenly mentioned Hua Qingxiao to someone. That very night, I dreamt of him. I returned to the day before my 16th birthday. Back then, the Meng residence was already adorned with red lanterns. 120 dowry palanquins were packed full, arranged in the courtyard. All that remained was for me to depart. Hua Qingxiao was no noble scion, an orphan. He'd been taken in by my father to serve as my guard. But later, he went to war. Because he wanted to marry me. He sought to prove his worth to my father and brothers through repeated military victories. And I loved him. I loved the blush that spread across his face whenever he saw me. I loved how he would carefully lead my horse for me. But most of all, I loved the sight of him returning victorious, riding tall and proud atop his horse. Eventually, my father and brothers recognized his valor and granted his marriage proposal. They said I would marry him when I turned 16. But the day before my wedding, the Xiong kingdom invaded our border. They slaughtered, pillaged, and plundered, leaving the people suffering terribly. He had to go. As he rode away on his tall steed, he waved his arm at me, his smile radiant. Zhao Zhao, wait for me. I waited day after day, longing for his return. But in the end, all I received was his blood-stained jade pendant. My father and brothers said he was dead, never to return. Just one day more and I would have become Hua Qingxiao's wife. But what is missed is truly lost. From that day on, I could never be his wife. I remember the snow that day, so thick, blanketing everything in white. The cold pierced my bones, and blood stained my hands red. But no one would drape a fox fur cloak over me, hold my hand, and say with resigned tenderness, Chao Zhao, be careful not to catch a chill. In this world, Hua Qingxiao no longer exists. Childhood sweethearts, innocent and carefree. Yet in the end, you lie buried beneath the earth. Bones crumbling to dust, I remain in this world. Snow piled upon my head. When I awoke, the snow had ceased. The Empress summoned me to the palace. As I approached the cunning palace, I saw the grand hall crowded with people. The third prince, Gu Yu. Shen Huaiting was there too. He glared at the third prince with a grim expression, shielding Gu Yueru beside him. Gu Yueru stood behind him, sobbing and sniffling. To an outsider, he might have been mistaken for her husband. Upon seeing me, Shen Huaiting's expression stiffened. He tried to pull away from Gu Yueru, but she grabbed his sleeve. A complete farce. The Empress's displeasure was utterly unconcealed. Zhao Zhao. The third prince claims you witnessed Huaiting and the third prince's consort entangled at the alleyway. Is this true? The moment these words left her lips, I understood the Empress's intent. At that moment, the alleyway was deserted, only the third prince, Gu Yueru, and I were present. As long as I denied it, without witnesses, the third prince could do nothing, however resentful he might be. The Empress dared summon me here, certain I would side with Shen Huaiting. After all, I have always held deep affection for him. Under normal circumstances, I would have granted her wish. But this time, she miscalculated. Your Majesty, I did indeed witness it. The Empress, enraged, slammed her hand on the table and rose. Madam Shen, think carefully before you speak. I knelt, bowed 3 times and kowtowed 9 times, speaking each word with deliberate clarity. Your Majesty, it is common knowledge that the Marquis of Shen and I have been estranged since our marriage. He does not cherish me. I beseech your Majesty to issue a decree granting us a divorce, to marry freely, unbound by ties. At these words, the assembly gasped in shock. They could scarcely believe I would publicly petition for divorce. My resolve was absolute. Even more astonishing was Shen Huaiting. His face drained of color as he roared. I refuse. I refuse to consent to this divorce. At that moment, a woman knelt beside me, sobbing, Your Majesty, the Meng family has served the Emperor and the nation faithfully, never uttering a word of complaint in battle. But my daughter endures unbearable suffering. I cannot bear to watch. Have mercy, Your Majesty, and grant her wish. It was my mother. I turned to look at her, only to be startled by the tears streaming down her face. This woman who had followed her husband into battle. This woman the people of Xinjiang called fearless against tigers and wolves. Who bled but never shed tears. For her suffering daughter. Her tears now flowed with such heartrending sorrow. The assembled crowd couldn't help but show a hint of pity. After all, over the years, Shen Huaiting's absurd actions were too numerous to count. Your Majesty, if they remain together, they will only become a bitter couple. Someone spoke up to advise. But Shen Huaiting suddenly turned to him, his gaze terrifying beyond measure. The man's face turned ashen, and he instantly fell silent. Your Majesty, Meng Suichao is my husband. Whether we divorce is our family's affair. I beg your Majesty not to trouble yourself. But before he could finish, the Empress interrupted him. Since that is the case, then divorce them. From this day forward, Meng Suichao and Shen Huaiting shall have no marital ties. No connection whatsoever. The Empress's decree had been issued. Shen Huaiting's own wishes no longer mattered. I did not return to my own residence but went straight to the Meng household. In the carriage, Mother held me close, just as she had when I was a child. My child has suffered so much. I shook my head. Back at the mansion, Father had been waiting for a long time. The moment I stepped into the main hall, he spoke with displeasure. Meng Suichao, how dare you unilaterally decide to divorce? You are utterly audacious. But before he could finish, Mother stepped before me, eyes blazing with fury. For 3 years, Cao Cao endured the cold stares and scorn of Xinjiang's people, marrying that wastrel Shen Huaiting for the sake of the Meng family. Do you want her to suffer for the rest of her life? Her voice trembled at the end. and tears welled up as she spoke. Father, rarely seeing mother so distressed, instantly panicked and explained, Chow Chow is my daughter too. Does seeing her suffer not break my heart? But that doesn't mean we can rush into a divorce like this. No matter how absurd or dissolute Shen Huiting may be, he is still a marquis, the Empress's own nephew. Though she agreed to the divorce today under pressure, resentment will linger in her heart. If she targets Chow Chow in the future, who would dare marry her then? Hearing this, mother's face turned ashen. She looked at me, utterly flustered. Father sighed deeply. That's precisely why I say you. I abruptly cut him off. I won't marry. Father froze. What? I knelt before them, bowing deeply. Father, mother, your daughter will never marry again. There is someone in my heart. As long as I cannot forget him, I will never marry another. My heart is a wasteland, barren and lifeless. I don't know when I might forget Hua Qingxiao. But if I can't forget him, then so be it. I never wanted to forget him in the first place. He lived alone, died in this world. If even I forget him, then he would leave no trace of ever having existed. That would be too cruel for him. And for me as well. The next day, news of my divorce from Gu Huiting spread like wildfire. The servants of the Meng household, likely harboring deep resentment toward Shen Huiting, packed up all my belongings in less than a day. I moved back to the Meng residence. My dear friend, Zhao Ruyu, eldest daughter of imperial physician Zhao, came for tea. Seeing my healthy complexion, she relaxed. Smiling, she chatted about court gossip. You haven't heard? Gu Yueru lost her child. The third prince claims she fell by accident. But when I visited, her face was pale with a bluish tint, like she'd taken abortion medicine. I smiled faintly. Unsurprised, the third prince still harbors suspicions about Gu Yueru and Shen Huiting's relationship. Zhao Ruyu nodded, her tone tinged with schadenfreude. Indeed. Though Shen Huiting swears up and down their relationship is pure, the third prince doesn't believe a word of it. Lately, the two of them have been bickering constantly in court. It's quite the spectacle. You've finally escaped that misery. Here's to you. Saying this, she raised her cup to me. But before I knew it, I'd downed several cups myself. A faint blush spread across my pale cheeks, and my eyes glistened with moisture. She chuckled softly, gently tapping my forehead. I lost track of how much I drank. In my hazy drunkenness, I seemed to hear Zhao Ruyu's soft voice. In a few days, the crown prince of Xiangwo will arrive. I hear he wishes to marry a woman from Xinjiang. I wonder who's unlucky enough to be sent to that barren land. The Northwest? I pursed my lips and murmured a quiet rebuttal. The Northwest? It's not barren at all. There are mountains and rivers, grass and flowers. And the one I love most. The next morning, I awoke to find the news already spreading far and wide. The crown prince of Xiangwo was coming to the capital to seek a bride from Xinjiang. A marriage meant to cement the friendship between the two nations. Naturally, this had nothing to do with me. After all, how could a crown prince marry a woman who had been married before? But I was expected to attend the welcome banquet. Before the banquet began, mother was summoned away. Standing in the garden, I admired the crimson plum blossoms after the snow. Suddenly, Shen Huiting approached me. I turned to leave, but he seized my wrist. Meng Sui Chao. There's something you haven't taken with you. It was a redwood box. Inside lay 3 hairpins. 3 magnolia jade hairpins. Except for the different magnolia petals, they were identical. All were birthday gifts Shen Huiting had given me each year. He never remembered anything about me. His birthday gifts were merely items he'd randomly picked from the storeroom after his grandmother reminded him to save face for me. I murmured softly, "These are yours. Since I'm leaving, I'll return them." Shen Huiting stiffened. his expression suddenly turning angry. I can't take back what I've given away. If you don't want it, I'll just throw it away. He made a move to toss them into the pond. I didn't stop him. Then throw them away. You don't care about them anyway. Shen Huiting fixed his eyes on me. His voice low and hoarse, tinged with awkwardness. Meng Sui Chao. Do you truly feel nothing for me? I lifted my gaze to meet his and shook my head. No. Not a single shred. We were never meant to be. Why hold on to any feelings? But in truth, I had deceived Shen Huiting. Once. There was a shred. When I first arrived in Xinjing to pay my respects to the Empress, I got lost in the palace. I wandered deeper and deeper, ending up in the deserted cold palace. It was gloomy and terrifying. My heart raced, and I quickened my pace to leave, but I twisted my ankle and fell into a stone cave. The sky grew dark, and the cold intensified. Just when I thought I'd freeze to death there, Shen Huiting saved me. He draped his cloak over me, carried me to a spot not far from the Empress's palace, and set me down. He told me to walk slowly back. He said nothing, but I knew he feared gossip would tarnish my reputation. I was grateful for his help. So when I learned of the arranged marriage, I even pleaded with the Empress. But she refused. Imperial authority reigns supreme. The edict has been issued. Who dares defy it? I was powerless. For years after our marriage, he indulged in every conceivable folly, summoning and dismissing me as he pleased. I bore it all without complaint, tending to his every need. Not only did I see him as a substitute for Hua Qingshao, but I also sought to repay his kindness. 3 years passed, and that sliver of affection was utterly drained. At the banquet, I drifted in bored reverie until a summons rang out. The Crown Prince of Xianghua has arrived. Curious to see the prince who had outmaneuvered dozens of Xianghua princes to ascend to this position, I lifted my gaze. One glance was all it took. I could not tear my eyes away. Clothed in crimson, his jet-black hair framed skin as fair as jade, unparalleled in beauty, the defiant arrogance in his brow stirred my heart. In that daze, I thought I saw the youth from 5 years ago. Zhao Zhao. Wait for me to return. I stumbled to my feet, wanting to walk toward him, but my mother seized my hand. I snapped back to reality, noticing the strange looks from others. I slowly sat back down, my gaze fixed on the man not far away. I murmured to myself, Hua Qingshao. He was back. After the banquet, I stopped the man. Hua Qingshao. You didn't die. His handsome brows furrowed as he interrupted me. What Hua Qingshao? I am Yuan Shuo. Hearing this, my heart, which had been racing since I saw him, plunged into an icy abyss. A chill ran through me from head to toe. I stared at him, studying him for a long moment. Hua Qingshao. Suddenly, I smiled brightly. Perhaps no one has ever told you, whenever you lie, your eyes look more innocent. Yet your ears turn a vivid crimson. The man froze, instinctively covering his ears. The next second, he caught my knowing gaze. You're bluffing me. I curved my lips slightly, my tone calm. Hua Qingshao. You came to my home when you were 5. We were together for 11 years. I know you far better than you imagine. You can't fool me. But the man turned his head away, refusing to look at me, repeating, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know Hua Qingshao. And I certainly don't know you. I clenched my trembling palms, gritted my teeth, and forced an ugly smile. Then let's just say I mistook you for someone else. My Hua Qingshao is long dead. Since you refuse to acknowledge it, I'll forget it too. I don't care to remember him anyway. What's so great about him? I have plenty who love me, plenty willing to marry me. I don't need him. As I spoke, snow suddenly began to fall. layer upon layer covering me, cold to the bone. I stared at the familiar face before me, the one that had appeared time and again in my dreams. Suddenly, a line came to mind. Black hair veiled in snow. Still counts as growing old together. I stood within the palace walls of red brick and green tiles, facing the swirling snowstorm, my voice scattered by the howling wind. I told Hua Qingxiao. Perhaps I truly was mistaken. My little general had long perished on the battlefield, never to return. I've mourned him for so many years, it's time to live my own life now. I must move forward. I won't look back. A faint chill of snow blanketed us both. For a moment, only the howling wind could be heard. I shifted my stiffened feet, turning to leave, but the next instant, I was swept into a warm embrace. Hua Qingxiao looked down at me, raising his hand to wipe away my tears. His tone was both resigned and indulgent. Zhao Zhao, why are you still the same as when you were little? You cry the moment you speak harsh words. He was indeed Hua Qingxiao. But he was also Yuan Shuo, Crown Prince of Xiang Kingdom. He dared not reveal himself to me because he desperately wanted to avoid exposing me as his fatal weakness so soon. But he misjudged my tears. So be it. Exposed. He hadn't died in the war 5 years ago. Instead, the 13th Prince of Xiang Kingdom had saved him and brought him back to the imperial court. Because they looked exactly alike. The 13th Prince was his own flesh and blood brother. The imperial strife within Xiang Kingdom was terrifying. He schemed relentlessly, slaying countless rivals to seize the crown prince's position. Now, even the emperor of Xiang Kingdom holds less authority than he does. He spoke casually of the open hostility and hidden daggers he faced, assassinations that came without warning, betrayals without reason. My heart pounded in terror as I listened. I dared not imagine the agony of his struggle to survive through it all. My hand instinctively reached for his, only to find his grasping mine in return, firm, trembling slightly. His gaze burned with the same intensity as when he looked at me years ago. Everyone wants me dead. But I cannot die. I know a girl waits here for my return, waiting for me to marry her. So no matter what, I must come back to wed her. Anyone who stands in my way, I will cut down without hesitation. I fear not staining my hands red, I only fear never reaching her side. I wept uncontrollably, as if pouring out years of longing. He leaned down and kissed my lips lightly. His voice choked with emotion. Zhao Zhao. I'm back. I've come to marry you. 3 days later, Hua Qingxiao formally petitioned the court to marry the eldest daughter of the Meng family. Initially, the emperor was reluctant. After all, the Mengs were military commanders holding military power. How could they be permitted to marry the crown prince of another nation? He only allowed Hua Qingxiao to choose another maiden, even a princess if he wished. Shen Huoding fiercely denounced Hua Qingxiao's proposal as treacherous ambition, accusing him of ulterior motives, criticizing him from the perspectives of state, family, and personal integrity. The two even came to blows in the imperial court. In the end, Hua Qingxiao declared he would relinquish his claim to the crown prince's position and voluntarily marry into the Meng family as a son-in-law, the crown prince demoting himself to a hostage. Such a thing was unheard of. The court officials were stunned, unable to fathom Hua Qingxiao's true intentions. Yet his demeanor was utterly sincere. My entire life has been lived not for power or gain, but to win the heart of one person. I can forsake everything, seeking only to marry Meng Suichao. The emperor stared at Hua Qingxiao in shock, speechless for a long moment. Only Shen Huiding argued passionately, pleading with His Majesty not to grant Hua Qingxiao's marriage request. But everyone knew the emperor would agree, exchanging a marriage for a foreign crown prince of extraordinary ability. Such a bargain, who could refuse? When I heard the news, my heart pounded in disbelief. I couldn't believe Hua Qingxiao would go this far for me. Zhao Ryu teased me with a smile. Miss Meng, you're so fortunate. First, the Marquis of Shin argued fiercely to prevent your forced marriage. Now, the Crown Prince of Xiongwa seeks your hand, even lowering his status to a king. Snapping back to reality, I shot her a reproachful glare. After a moment of playful banter, she suddenly grew serious. But Cao Zhao, have you considered this? Yu Wenshua is willing to give up his throne for you now. But what if he regrets it later and blames you for everything? I scoffed, raising an unconcerned eyebrow. Then we'll divorce. It's not like this would be my first time. Zhao Ryu paused, then smiled with relief. Truly the daughter of a military family. Such decisiveness, this is the Meng Suichao I know. The one who dominated the horse racing grounds upon first entering Xinjing. I took a sip of wine and declared loudly, when life is good, one must revel in it. Why be troubled or worried by things that haven't even happened? Every word was imbued with carefree abandon. Once, I drowned in the agony of my beloved's brutal death on the battlefield, punishing myself relentlessly. But now, he's returned. This predicament dissolves of its own accord. I've become that free-spirited, decisive Meng Suichao of the Northwest once more. Love is a mutual journey. I neither control nor predict the future. What I can do is this. If you have no feelings, I shall let go. After Zhao Ryu left, a figure emerged from behind the screen. I looked up and asked, "Did you hear that?" Hua Qingxiao clasped my hand, his tone unwavering. "Cao Cao. I swear nothing she said will ever happen. Nothing matters more than you." I let out a soft laugh. I believed him. Many years later, both of us were gray-haired, surrounded by children and grandchildren running about, rarely finding quiet moments. We nestled in recliners. Suddenly, he asked me, "Cao Cao, if I truly came to resent you, would you really divorce me?" "No." I curved my lips into a smile, speaking each word deliberately. "I would kill you myself. You taught me that traitors must be killed to eliminate future troubles." Hua Qingxiao tightened his grip on my hand, smiling with resignation. "If it's you, I'd gladly die." The imperial decree for the arranged marriage arrived half a month later. In the court hall, Shin Huiding looked grim, while Hua Qingxiao radiated confidence. Many whispered to me that Shin Huiding seemed to harbor feelings for me. But I had no time to spare for such matters. Nor did I wish to. What's past is past. Why dwell on it? Yet I never expected Gu Ryu to seek me out. Her face was deathly pale, her eyes hollow and devoid of light, evidence she suffered terribly in the third prince's residence. She told me, "Shin Huiding never touched me. The one he's always loved is you, though he himself doesn't realize it." Did you think all those absurd things he did were just to force a divorce? No. He despises your perpetual calm. Everyone in Xinjing says you love him like your life depends on it. Even after his outrageous behavior, you never left him. But he knows you never truly felt anything for him. He told me, someone who truly loves you wouldn't look like a bodhisattva. So he sent people to investigate your past, to learn about your life in the Northwest. That's how he discovered Hua Qingxiao, learned of your betrothal to him. In that moment, everything clicked for him. As for me, perhaps he once felt something for me. But after meeting you, he changed. I knew he changed. I just couldn't accept it. I used his guilt to keep him. But in the end, I lost everything. Because of her obsession, she lost her child, her husband's trust and affection, and the dignity of a prince's consort. In the end, even the man she loved no longer loved her. Yet she pursued it all, knowing full well it was impossible. She brought it upon herself. I imagine if another woman had married Shin Huiding instead of me, she'd likely have lived forever in the pain and neglect he inflicted, her life withering away. As I left, I looked at Gu Yueru and whispered, "Live well. Only by living is there hope." Death means truly losing everything. Within the court and the realm, Hua Qingxiao and Shen Huiding became sworn enemies. Whenever they met, it was either heated argument or cutting sarcasm. Neither would yield an inch. Hearing this, I found myself both amused and exasperated. It seemed Hua Qingxiao's resentment toward Shen Huiding's treatment of me drove his taunts. But I said little. It merely struck me as amusing. One day, while out shopping for jewelry, I bumped into Shen Huiding. He invited me to sit for a moment at the restaurant. Seeing the stubbornness in his eyes, I didn't refuse. The private room door was open, with no intention of secrecy. His first words were a demand, "Are you really going to marry him?" I nodded. Shen Huiding's expression fell, yet a strange light flashed in his eyes. Do you even know what kind of man he truly is? How many people did he slaughter in Xianghua over the years to seize the crown prince's position? How could he so easily relinquish it to another? He must have ulterior motives. He's no longer the young general you once knew. He's now the crown prince of Xianghua, wielding absolute power, his hands stained with the blood of his own brothers. He spoke with such fury, as if genuinely worried for me. But I remained composed throughout. Only when his agitation grew did I interrupt him. So what? Shen Huiding froze, his crimson eyes flickering slightly. I murmured softly, he was born into the imperial court. Brothers fighting, fathers and sons clashing, isn't that the very nature of imperial power? Isn't our great Yong no different? If he doesn't fight or seize, does that mean he should just let himself be slaughtered to prove he hasn't changed? I know what kind of man he is better than you do. I don't want him to be flawless. I want him alive. I want him alive and back by my side. The bloody deeds Shen Huiding attributed to Hua Qingxiao? To me, they were merely acts of survival. My heart ached for him. He schemed relentlessly just to return to my side. How could I believe his heart had changed based on others' idle chatter? Shen Huiding has always misjudged me. I didn't want to engage with him and turned to leave, but Shen Huiding suddenly said, "Meng Sui Chao. I truly regret it. I always thought it was you who told the Empress I'd saved you, forcing her to make me marry you. All these years, you've been so kind and considerate, making me believe you loved me. At first, I hated you, drinking and listening to opera just to make you angry. But that day, when you cried and asked if it hurt, my wound didn't ache at all. Yet my heart ached terribly. Only then did I realize I wasn't hating you, I was terrified of falling for you. So I kept my distance." He looked up at me, his eyes tinged with sorrow. Did I realize this too late? His grief was palpable, yet I felt only bewilderment. I never knew Shen Huiding's inner turmoil or affection. But what difference does it make now? He never showed me the slightest warmth. 3 years of marriage, scarred and broken. I've wronged him, but he's wronged me too. We owe each other nothing. Shen Huiding, you shouldn't have liked me. Because I never liked you, my kindness was only to repay your kindness. So I'm sorry for letting you misunderstand for so long. I stepped into the carriage. Shen Huiding's deep voice echoed from behind, "Meng Sui Chao. I wish you a blissful marriage and a lifetime of happiness." My movement paused. I turned and smiled. "Thank you. I will." The moment I entered the carriage, I was pulled tightly into an embrace. The man leaned discontentedly into my shoulder, his tone tinged with irritation. "We've been chatting forever. Do you realize the person waiting here is getting tired?" "I'm just jealous." I smiled faintly, turned, and kissed his lips. Seeing his startled expression, my smile deepened. But the next second, Hua Qingxiao leaned in excessively close, his voice coaxing. "Chao Zhao. Just one more kiss." I patted his head. "Hua Qingxiao. Enough is enough." He still reluctantly rubbed against me in my arms. His lips murmured my name. I couldn't be bothered to respond. Lifting the carriage curtain, I discovered it had actually started snowing. Looking far into the distance, everything was blanketed in white. Even beautiful. In a daze, I felt as if I'd returned to the eve of my 16th birthday. I saw that young general standing atop the wall, looking down at me, dashing and effortlessly handsome. A smile played on his lips as he asked, "Zhao Zhao, did you get your wish to marry me?" I turned my head to look at the man beside me. He was chattering away about the wedding arrangements. He was practically itching to take charge himself. Not a trace of the cold, reserved man I knew in the imperial court. I gently hooked my arm through his and nodded. My wish came true. The young bride of the Meng family, who at 16 longed to marry Hua Qingxiao. At 20, she finally wed him, became his wife. Though the path was fraught with twists and turns. Looking back now, my heart belongs only to Hua Qingxiao. My heart began with him, and my journey ends with him. But I believe childhood sweethearts are meant to grow old together. Shen Huiting's side story. When Meng Suiqiao married Hua Qingxiao, I attended the ceremony. She wore a crimson wedding gown, its hem embroidered with pearls as white as jade. I heard Hua Qingxiao personally retrieved them from the South Sea. His devotion was beyond compare. This crown prince of Xiangwa truly loves deeply. I hear he designed the entire wedding attire himself. Indeed. Hundreds of embroiderers worked day and night to complete it. Just look, it's breathtakingly beautiful. How enviable. Listening to the envious tones around me, I felt only indifference. After all, no matter how splendid the gift, it pales beside Zhao Zhao. When Zhao Zhao first married into my household, I detested her. I loved Guyu deeply and was prepared to grow old with her. Yet in the end, I received someone else. I couldn't even resist. Under the emperor's authority, my powerlessness was starkly evident. I refused to share a bed with her, much less see her. I loathed her perpetually smiling, gentle face. No matter how cruel I was, she handled it with composure, always meeting me with a smile. Once, I tricked her into kneeling all day at a remote temple. She truly knelt there through the night. When she returned, her eyes held a hint of hope as she asked me, "Your lordship, is that temple truly so powerful?" In that moment, my heart clenched violently. I fled in panic. Later, I told her the truth. I expected her to be angry or sad, but she wasn't. She just paused for a moment, then smiled and said, "It's all right, your lordship." Everyone urged me to treat her better, saying she adored me deeply. But loving someone shouldn't feel like this. True love brings joy and sorrow for her sake, only indifference brings lasting calm. And yet, though her gaze fixed on me, I always felt she was looking through me at someone else. Who could that person be? I wanted to know. So I sent men to investigate her time in the Northwest. And learned everything. Back then, she'd gallop on horseback through the courtyards. She shot arrows with deadly accuracy. The graceful way she wielded her whip drew crowds every time. It turned out she wasn't always gentle and refined. But she did possess a maiden's tenderness for one man alone. His name was Hua Qingxiao. And Cao Cao had nearly married him. When I learned this, my first thought was, thank God Hua Qingxiao is dead. Otherwise, Cao Cao wouldn't have married me. But the next moment, endless rage and jealousy consumed me. Hua Qingxiao died when Cao Cao loved him most. She would never forget him for the rest of her life. As for me, I was merely a substitute. That night, I drank myself into a stupor until Cao Cao came to escort me back to the mansion. She thought my drunkenness stemmed from Gu Yueru. But it didn't. It was for her. Later, when my face was scarred, she first mentioned Hua Qingxiao to me. I didn't want to hear it, vaguely sensing her motives. Yet she was so resolute. Even as I fled in panic, I could not defy the Empress's decree. In that moment, I knew she harbored not a shred of affection for me. But I suppose even if she had, it had long been drained dry by this absurd marriage. Returning to the mansion, I had barely entered my room when Guyueru asked, "Did you go see her?" Guyueru had lost her child. Yet the third prince regarded her as a disgrace, seeking to torment her at every turn. That incident was ultimately my fault. I sought out the third prince and struck a deal with him. I would help him establish himself in the court. And in return, he would falsely report Guyueru's death and send her to my residence. The third prince believed I still harbored lingering affection for Guyueru. But that was not the case. I simply did not wish to leave her in debt to me. I told Guyueru, "This is what I owe you. Live well in this residence." In that instant, the affection in Guyueru's eyes vanished completely, replaced only by hollow hatred. Love hates her for living, love hates her for dying. Love turning to hate is that simple. She gave a cold laugh, her tone laced with scorn. "Seeing the one you love marry another, that must be unbearable. Right?" I glanced at her, my gaze drifting to the mimosa tree outside the window. My voice was flat. "It is. But I deserve it." She snorted, then fell silent. This mimosa tree was planted by my parents together, symbolizing their harmonious marriage. After they passed away, I never had it cut down. Zhao Zhao loved it too. In summer, she'd sit barefoot on the swing, swaying back and forth, her gaze fixed upward in a rare moment of carefree ease. Hearing my footsteps, she turned to look, a faint smile touching her lips. Her voice soft. "Your lordship has returned." I suppose that was the moment my heart stirred. I just refused to admit it. "I treated you as a substitute. But you treated me poorly too. We owe each other nothing now." "Yes. We owe each other nothing." The end.